makers and market movers. This is The Pulse with Francine Lacqua.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Pulse. I'm Francine Lacqua here in London with the conversations that matter, and here's what's coming up on today's program. Traders assess a mixed U.S. jobs report for clues on the Fed's next decision. As officials debate further rate hikes ahead of this week's CPI report, Europe starts the week in the red. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells me exclusively he will not pursue the entire judicial overhaul originally planned by his government.
I don't think we should move from one extreme where we have perhaps the most activist judicial court on the planet to getting to a point where the legislature, our Knesset, can just knock out any decision that the court makes.
Plus, a week climbs Ukraine's drone attack on shipping put Russia's commodity exports at risk. So let's take a look at the European markets map. A lot going on. First of all, happy Monday, everyone. It's going to be a big week also as we watch those U.S. bond auction dates. Now, if you look at the short-term German bonds, they're actually rising. The central bank saying would stop paying interest on domestic government deposits, and that's definitely spurring a dash for higher yielding cash. Now, if you look at Germany's two-year, extremely sensitive. The other big story is, of course, what's happening with treasuries. So let's get on to treasuries. But before that, the NASDAQ, because of the report that we had on Friday. Now, we're seeing in futures NASDAQ higher a touch after the sell-off that we saw on Friday. Then Treasury yields also advancing, reversing some of Friday's declines when the interest rate sensitive two-year yield and the 10-year yield actually fell more than 10 basis points after the U.S. payrolls came in below estimates. And then this is the interview that we did over the weekend. We spoke to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He tried to really tell the markets that, look, the dust will settle, that things will get better, and he won't continue with as much aggressive with his overhaul of the judicial system. For the moment, you can see the shekel 36634. Now, joining us to dive into the markets is Economics founder and chief economist Rafaelle Tenconi, and with me here in the studio in London are Bloomberg Markets Today managing editor Christina Kina. So thank you both for joining us. Rafaelle, let me start off with you. I don't know what you make of the U.S. jobs data on Friday and how that will influence not only auctions for treasuries this week, but actually what the Fed does.
Hi, good morning. Well, labor market in the U.S. is softening very slowly, but de facto, it's not an alarming slowdown. It's softer than last year, occasionally, a little bit stronger, a little bit softer in the last few months. But essentially, we think we are in a period where you're very unlikely to see much of an abrupt halt in the labor market. Essentially, we don't think central banks will get the rise in unemployment rate and sustained moderation in wage growth in the coming year that they hope to see. The thing that you can hope is that gradually job creation is slightly less active. Maybe you get an increase in the unemployment level, but not so much the unemployment rate. And this is essentially going to shape GDP outlook for the next year.
What's your take, Christina, on the longer-term impact of this? Again, we're still trying to figure out exactly where the dust settles. You could also see, and we have CPI print this week, we could see it lower and then higher by the end of the year.
Yeah, Francine, I mean, it was really mixed signals from that jobs report last week. And I think it will bolster the argument that some of the more hawkish members of the FOMC to add more rate hikes to the Fed's path in the next coming months, even though we did see them pause in June and then do some more in July. But yeah, I think that is the idea, is that what this will signal to some of the hawks is that essentially the U.S. labor market is doing just fine, and so it can withstand probably more tightening down the line. And meanwhile, that wage growth number still showing signs of inflation, despite that cooling in the headline number. We are seeing wage inflation specifically remaining sticky in the U.S., and that's something for the Fed to address for sure.
Christine, should we worry about the bond auctions for treasuries?
I mean, it's certainly something to keep an eye on, especially more closely now that we've gotten that Fitch action. But yeah, I mean, I would expect these auctions to get a little bit more attention, just because, you know, this idea of the U.S. kind of struggling with its fiscal future. It's not an immediate issue, obviously, and again, it hasn't really done much to dent consumer confidence in treasuries as a viable investment option. It is still the world's biggest, most deepest, most liquid bond market. So it has that going for it. But yeah, certainly, I think questions more and more over the U.S.'s fiscal responsibility, really, over the coming decades or so. Definitely something for investors to watch.
So, Rafaelle, what's your take on where we are in the cycle? I know it's a very different business cycle, and I know you've also pointed this in your research to what we've seen over the last 3 decades.
Yes, essentially, we think that you should think of the business cycle as a completely different mechanism than the last 3 cycles. The last 3 cycles, we had a ramp up of debt, aggressive monetary tightening, labor market was loose when the tightening was taking place, or much looser than what it is now, because we had the aging of the population not as advanced as now. And we had fiscal policy that was only coming to play maybe a year or a year and a half after the recession happened. Now what you have is that fiscal policy de facto has been loose since 2020. Aging population is really affecting the labor market. And we had a ramp up of assets more than debt when you look at developed markets. So the best way to think about the business cycle, it's a bit like an emerging market. The downturns are going to be more frequent, but shallower. So this is why you never get quite to the recession that you need to really get into the disinflationary phase. Inflation is still behaving within a cycle. You know, right now it is de facto decelerating, although maybe the August and September print are going to be less decelerating than what we had expected a few months ago. But de facto, you really need to change your mental map. Don't look for the recession, okay? Right. Look for the twists in the data.
All right, we'll look for the twist, and I'll ask you more about those twists shortly as well. Rafaelle Tenconi and Cristina Aquino both stay with us. Now, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will not pursue the entire judicial overhaul originally planned by his government. He will instead work on changing the makeup of the judge selection committee.
I'm still going to give it several months to try to get another consensus. What is it? It would probably be about the composition of the committee that elects judges. I don't think we should move from one extreme where we have perhaps the most activist judicial court on the planet to getting to a point where the legislature, our Knesset, can just knock out any decision that the court makes. There has to be a balance. That's what we're trying to restore.
That was the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking to us exclusively over the weekend in Jerusalem. Now, we'll be bringing you more of my exclusive interview with the Prime Minister later this hour. This is Bloomberg.
I've expected the economy to slow down in a fairly orderly way, and this number, the 187, comes in continuing that pace. But I'm comfortable. I'm not expecting this to be over in a short period of time.
The job market is cooling a little to kind of a balanced level, but it's still extremely strong. That's the strongest part of the economy by far. When we see what's happening to wages today, this is kind of an amalgam of a bunch of stuff that already occurred. I think if you want to know if you're beating inflation, go watch the inflation. You know, the price series, and especially the new months of inflation in the court.
Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic and Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee. They're speaking with Bloomberg's David Weston in Aspen. However, the Fed's governor, Michelle Bowman, said the U.S. central bank may need to raise rates further in order to fully restore price stability. Well, still with us are the Economics founder and chief economist Rafaelle Tenconi and Bloomberg's Cristina Aquino. So thank you both for staying with us. Rafaelle, I don't know how hard it is, first of all, to measure productivity given all of the swings that we've seen with COVID, but also is the hardest part of getting inflation back back to target now, so that 4% to 2% move that could be quite disrupted. I know you say, look, don't look for a recession, but how hard is it going to be for central banks not to mess up here?
Well, it's quite hard because if you don't have the rise in unemployment that normally the downturn in the business cycle delivers, then it's very hard to see the increase in productivity that comes usually in this phase. So what you really need is the genuine long-term productivity, which we actually need, and will come as we learn to use energy, green, and digital transitions better. So it's a journey that is going to be at least 3, maybe 5 years long. So the best way to see it is to make sure that there's continuing investment in the next years in these segments, and that the corporate sector doesn't polarize too much. Essentially, what you see now in earnings is that a lot of the earnings tend to be concentrated. Ideally, you want earnings to be as evenly spread within the economy as possible, so that everybody has the time to learn how to use the new technology effectively.
Yeah.
In the near term, unfortunately, you have to deal with the fact that energy is going to be inflationary in August and September. And as I said, the wage pattern isn't going to make the Fed relaxed.
And Christine, we also, speaking about, the bets on a recession, we also have our own MLive Pulse survey. We're a more optimistic bunch.
Yeah, at least for 2023.
When
right?
I say we, let me just make it clear it's our guests. So
yes, exactly.
People who use the Bloomberg.
Exactly. So a bunch of investors that we've surveyed looking more optimistic, at least for 2023, and not really seeing a recession until next year. But they are still holding on to those bets, which is quite interesting, right? Because we have seen that soft landing narrative take more hold in July, because we did get signs of cooler inflation in the U.S. And then, of course, the labor market, as we know, is still holding up really quite well, despite the softer payrolls number on Friday. But yeah, I think, there's still that idea that eventually we are going to get this recession. It's just a matter of when rather than if. And in that scenario, they're definitely going with the traditional buying bonds and selling stocks sort of play. Although we have seen, of course, the bond market upheaval recently, driven by the Fitch rating downgrade for the U.S., as well as more Treasury issuance, kind of pouring a little bit of cold water in that Treasury bullish trade, right?
Yeah. I know the timing maybe wasn't it was pretty, let's say, efficacious if you want to put concerns in traders' minds. We also have the story that really caught my eye. KKR and the Fuchs family are seeking to take tech firm OHB private. Is there going to be more of a trend of actually some of these companies that are listed that private equity want to take private because there's just a lack of deals out there?
Yeah, generally, I think that does seem to be one viable option, especially for struggling companies that are really having a hard time tapping capital markets and for traditional sources of funding. But I think also there's an element of specificity here in this deal, because it is very much within that satellite space. And we of course, know there's been a lot of interest in kind of commercial space flight. Of course, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, just among some of the prominent names, are kind of really trying to grow the commercial space flight space. And so I think, the consolidation in the industry, as you mentioned, because of the difficulties of sourcing funding at the moment, makes a lot of sense for these companies, especially if they want to compete with those big names.
Yeah, Rafaelle, very quickly, what's your take on productivity? Is it going to be worse or better as we go into this next phase of the cycle?
I hope it's going to be better, but I think we need to still do a lot of institutional improvement to really learn how to get the productivity out of, especially digital technology, which is the core of everything we're trying to do. So it's more of a hope than a reality at this stage, I think.
All right, Rafaelle, as always, thank you so much. ADA Economics founder and chief economist Rafaelle Tenconi, and Bloomberg's Christina Aquino also joining us this morning in the studio. Now, coming up, 80% of European companies have reported for the second quarter so far. So we'll break down the winners and the losers next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back, everyone. So Saudi Aramco has raised its payout to shareholders by more than half. That's as the world's biggest oil exporter announced a performance-linked dividend despite a drop in quarterly profit. Now for more, let's bring in Bloomberg's Middle East energy markets reporter Anthony Di Paola in Dubai. Good morning, Anthony. So what do you make of these numbers?
Good morning, Francine. This is Aramco going along with kind of the trend that we've seen in the industry so far in this period of quarterly earnings. We've seen profit come down for all the oil majors, and then a lot of return of cash to shareholders via payouts, via buybacks. So Aramco is going again in that vein, in part because they need to funnel some money into the Saudi government to fund those ambitious growth plans of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman as he's trying to transform that economy into more of a manufacturing base, tourism, technology. On top of that as well, Aramco's got to compete with the other companies to try to attract those investors in with those greater payouts. So really, that's a slight increase in the regular dividend plus that additional performance-linked dividend, which Aramco says they're going to pay out for the next 6 quarters as well, starting in the 3rd quarter with this first payout. So it is quite big. Their free cash flow for the 2nd quarter doesn't quite make it to cover the regular dividend plus the special dividend, but they are putting that dividend based on the profit from 2022, from the first half of 2023. So that first half free cash flow does cover that dividend, Francine.
So, Anthony, what's Aramco's outlook going forward, and where's the company actually headed in terms of production?
Yeah, well, we're hearing now from the CEO, Amin Nasser. He's saying that they see demand increasing to about 103, 104 million barrels a day by the end of this year. Many forecasters are saying that oil demand is going to hit an all-time record before we're finished with this year. So he sees demand increasing. He is optimistic on China. That's their biggest customer for their oil. A lot of the people that we've been talking to have been saying, that Chinese recovery that we've been waiting for hasn't happened yet. It's slow to come. The economy's still sluggish. But he's taking an optimistic beat, saying that they've got that demand coming. Remember that Saudi Aramco is cutting production because of those OPEC plus cuts and a voluntary cut that Saudi Arabia signed up for. He's saying they've still got the oil to meet their customer demand, Francine.
Anthony, as always, thank you so much for all of your insight to Bloomberg's Middle East energy markets reporter Anthony Di Paola. Now, shares in German space technology company OHB are surging after KKR announced plans to take it private alongside the founding family. That's as competition in the satellite sector actually heats up. Now, investors will receive 44 euros for every OHB share, and the offer values the company at around 1 billion euros, including debt. The news does confirm an earlier Bloomberg report that the U.S. buyout firm was close to announcing the deal. Now, the European earnings season is winding down, with more than 80% of firms having reported so far. This week, we're looking at nearly $1.6 trillion in market cap reporting here in Europe. So joining us with the breakdown is our Bloomberg Intelligence Senior European Equity Strategist and Research Director, Tim Craighead. Tim, maybe people can go on holiday here in Europe, but I think in Asia there's like 1.8 trillion in terms of market cap that's reporting. So we're not quite done with all of these earnings. Overall, was it better than expected?
Quick answer is yes. In Europe, we're well north of 80% now in terms of the market cap that's reported. So this is the last big week. And if we look at an overall assessment, we've got more than half that are beating. Yep. We've got about a third that are missing. The ratio, therefore, is pretty typical and pretty robust. You might take pause and say, how can you say it's a good earnings period if earnings growth is actually a 10% decline? But the expectation was for 12, so it's a little bit better there. And importantly, if you take out energy and materials, given the year-on-year comparisons of commodity prices and profits, as you were talking about with Saudi Aramco, earnings growth is actually a very respectable 7% for the overall European market. So pretty solid.
And so what surprised you the most in all of this? I mean, is there something that's eye-catching? I don't know if there are sectors that could have done better and done worse, or vice versa.
So I suppose 2 things really jump out to me. One is profit margins. Again, Xing out energy and material. Every other sector was up year on year, positively surprised across most. And this isn't mediocre sort of profitability. We're at record levels, ex energy and material, for the stock 600. notwithstanding the economy. So, companies have been aggressively taking price. They've been doing various cost mitigation exercises. That continues to come through. Second thing, in terms of surprise, is it's not so much the earnings surprise that had a big impact this quarter. It was management guidance. Okay. Generally speaking, positive guidance, okay. But if you had negative guidance, stocks were off significantly. So that's where the asymmetry was on the surprise front.
Okay, really interesting. Tim, thank you so much. Tim Craighead there with the very latest on some of the earnings here in Europe that we've seen so far. Now, for more analysis and insight from our team at Bloomberg Intelligence this earnings season, just check out BI Go on your Bloomberg terminal. And Elon Musk says his proposed cage fight with Mark Zuckerberg will be live streamed on his X platform, previously known as Twitter. Now, the world's richest person says all proceeds will go to a charity for veterans. He later posted that the exact date of the fight is still in flux. Musk says he's getting an MRI scan for his neck and upper back. He says he may require surgery before the fight can happen, and we'll know this week. Musk, a notorious workaholic, says he's been suffering from mega back pain after a bout with a sumo wrestler, and Zuckerberg's a martial arts enthusiast and competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament earlier this year. There is also an open invitation to have the cage fight here on The Pulse. Coming up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells us he's pulling back on his judicial revamp plans. Traders assess a mixed U.S. jobs report for clues on the Fed's next decision as officials debate further rate hikes ahead of this week's CPI report, while Europe starts the week in the red. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells me exclusively he will not pursue the entire judicial overhaul originally planned by his government.
I don't think we should move from one extreme where we have perhaps the most activist judicial court on the planet to getting to a point where the legislature, our Knesset, can just knock out any decision that the court makes.
Plus, wheat climbs as Ukraine's drone attacks on shipping put Russia's commodity exports at risk. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Pulse. I'm Francine Lacqua here in London. So Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will work to change the makeup of the judge selection committee. He will not pursue the entire judicial overhaul originally planned by his government. This comes after months of protests as critics argued the overhaul would undermine the country's democracy. Well, Netanyahu says Israel will come out of the current turmoil stronger. He also told me that he's confident in the Bank of Israel Governor Amir Yaron and the central bank's independence.
I'm absolutely sure that Israel will come out stable and successful and democratic, at least as democratic, in my view, more democratic. I don't think we're going to tear the country apart. I don't think you're going to have civil war. I think right now what you're seeing is the natural conflict between two opposing views that have not yet meshed, but they will mesh.
Do you support your central bank governor, who is very well respected internationally?
Sure. I appointed him.
Will you back him for another term? He has to decide, I think, by next month.
Well, I haven't talked to him yet, but I will. But I've guarded, I would say, rigorously his independence, the independence of the central bank, and that will continue to be the policy. I will talk to him, but you wouldn't believe this, but we just not had the opportunity to discuss that.
But, Prime Minister, when you talk to him, will you ask him to stay on?
Possibly. I want to think about it. I haven't
what are you
had
thinking
time.
now?
I think he's been an exceptional central bank director, and I think that's a possibility that I'll have to talk to him about.
One of your ministers, I think, called him a savage for raising interest rates.
Yeah, well, my ministers in our hectic parliamentary system can say anything, but it's a fact that we've never intervened with the independence of the central bank, and we won't.
And so
in fact, I think I passed some laws or corrective additional laws that safeguarded the independence of the central bank. I do not want the government broaching in on what the central bank has to do. So
do you support the interest rate hikes?
I leave that decision to the central bank. You know, I've had several central bank directors because I've been in government a long time. I think in a few months I'll be probably more time in as Prime Minister than anybody in the Western world for the last half century. So I've had a lot of central bank directors to talk to. I always talk to them in a padded room, absolutely soundproof, that we could, hurl at each other whatever we want. But when I come out, I always give backing to the central bank director.
But, Prime Minister, it would be a pretty powerful message to the markets, given the divisions and given the turmoil, if you were to ask him to stay on.
Could be. That's a consideration. I'll consider it.
But do you agree? Would that be a powerful message?
I think the powerful message is the independence of the central bank. And I think the choices that I've made in bringing in central bank directors, whether it was Stanley Fischer and after him, the current central bank director, I think people see that we choose and choose well.
Israeli Prime Minister there, Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking to us exclusively over the weekend in Jerusalem. Now let's bring in Bloomberg's Israel Bureau Chief. He's Ethan Broner. Ethan, thank you for joining us. Overall, how was the interview actually received in Israel? I know the country is divided. There are many questions on what this means also for the judicial overhaul going forward.
Indeed. Good to see you, Fran. Look, it was the big news here with banner headlines in Haaretz and Yediot and the other major newspapers. But as everything having to do with this government and with Netanyahu, it's highly divisive. So on the one hand, he said to us, I'm going to move forward with judge selection. On the other hand, I'm not going to do these other steps that I had planned. So many people said, you see, he's moving ahead with judge selection. He's going to politicize judge selection. The rest doesn't matter. He's a future dictator. And there's a lot of anger about it. On the other hand, he's saying, no, we're going to negotiate. We simply want to move the needle a bit. We'll have to see how it comes out. As he said to you, let's talk in a year.
In the meantime, I mean, when we look at the big number for the economy, it's $520 billion, right? This is the Israeli economy that's under pressure from this political upheaval. Do we have any insight into what happens next, what investors are looking for?
I think, at the moment, the markets are relatively steady. The shekel is relatively, nothing huge happened as a result of this interview or what's happened. I think that we're going to have to see where this judge selection issue goes, as well as a whole bunch of other things. There's the reasonableness basis for judging that has been removed from judges by the Knesset and is now going to be heard by a full 15 justices on the 12th of September. There's also another law that this Knesset has passed making it very difficult to remove this current prime minister on the basis of incapacitation. That's also being looked at by the Supreme Court. We don't know. I think that the business community has been very nervous about what is happening here. On the other hand, there's such a strong basis, as you say, in this $500+ billion economy that it is being still quite attractive for investors.
So, Ethan, what happens next? At the moment, they're in summoned recess, and then, come the start of fall, we'll hear from the Supreme Court on whether what they decided is even legal.
Right. So there are two Supreme Court issues. One is this is incapacitation. That's underway right now. Another is this reasonableness thing. That's on the 12th of September. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has asked the opposition to gather and discuss at a table how to move forward on judge selection or on anything related to judicial overhaul in the coming months. The Knesset is on recess till the middle of October. And the idea is, he said, I'll give you to the end of November to let's work this thing out. The opposition is very angry at him. It says it's not particularly interested in negotiating unless he promises to do nothing on judiciary going forward. We'll have to see where it comes out. The president, Isaac Herzog, has been trying to bring the two sides together and find middle ground. He got somewhere, but then it fell apart. Will he be able to do it again? We don't know.
Yeah, and he also said that, he's going to try and deepen some of these economic and business, ties with Saudi Arabia. But many question marks on whether he'll be able to do that, Ethan.
That's an enormous question. I mean, one of the things about trying to observe Benjamin Netanyahu over the decades is that he has defied conventional wisdom often to his success. He did it on gas exploration here. He did it on expanding relations with the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco without making serious concessions to the Palestinians. And he says he can do the same again with Saudi Arabia. A lot of people think the magician may be out of tricks and that he can't. And I think this is the incredible high wire act that we see him engaged in. And it's very, very hard to know who's going to win. He is also under pressure because he's under prosecution. He's under charges of bribery and fraud and so on. So there's a lot of pressures on him, and he's 73. He had a heart pacemaker put in. It's hard to know whether he can pull it out, his magician hat, one more time. It's really hard to know.
Ethan, thank you so much. Our Bloomberg Israel bureau chief, who's, of course, with us at the interview with all of the preparation that he put into that. Ethan Broner joining us, of course, from Tel Aviv. Now, more from our interview coming up after the break, and this is Bloomberg. The conversations that matter, the insights you need. This is a Pulse, and I'm Francine Lacqua here in London. Now, going back to our exclusive interview with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he says he won't pursue the entire judicial overhaul originally planned by his government, and he says he's seeking a balance.
Well, I think that we've already done quite a bit. I've stopped the judicial legislation for 3 months, seeking consensus from the other side, unfortunately not getting it, then brought in a relatively minor part of the reform, passed it, and then said, I'm still going to give it several months to try to get another consensus. What is it? It would probably be about the composition of the committee that elects judges.
With the selection of the judges?
Yes.
How they're selected?
Right. That's basically what's left. And because other things, I think, we should not legislate. I don't think we should move from one extreme where we have perhaps the most activist judicial court on the planet to getting to a point where the legislature, our Knesset, can just knock out any decision that the court makes. There has to be a balance. That's what we're trying to restore.
So Prime Minister, when you look at the change in selection for the judges, how quickly could that come?
Well, if we get a compromise, it could come immediately. If we can't get a buy-in from the opposition in the parliament, there's always a buy-in from the public. What is the thing that the public accepts? And I'm giving it my best shot. I'm spending, I wouldn't say 24 hours a day on it. I'd say about 12 hours a day.
And if the public is not behind it, what do you do? Do you
I think
delay?
you should
Do you
choose
stop?
something. I think you should choose something that has broad acceptance.
Which looks like what?
Which looks like something that I'd like to negotiate, not even on Bloomberg.
Okay, but give me a flavor of is it walking back some of the things that have been said by certain ministers
I think,
around you?
Oh, ministers can say anything. I don't control words. In our parliamentary system, I control deeds, and that has to be understood. But since you know the European system, you know that unlike a presidential system, you don't control what is said by members of your cabinet.
But you can ask them to tone it down. Have you asked them to tone it down?
100 times.
And they're listening?
I succeeded 50 times.
And you'll continue to do so?
You don't always succeed. You don't always succeed. But that's what's important to understand is when the dust settles, are we going to have Israel that is stronger democratically, or is it weaker democratically? Is it something where you're going to have the balance that you need between the will of the majority and the rights of the minority or individual rights? Has that been strengthened, that balance, or has it been weakened?
Well, still with us, our Bloomberg Israel bureau chief Ethan Broner. Sir Ethan, are we expecting many more protests as the judicial overhaul continues, even if the Prime Minister says, it maybe won't be as aggressive as some people initially thought?
Yes, the expectation is there'll be continuous Saturday night protests. So I think that the protest movement, which has been going strong for 7 months, has made the decision that it's a bad idea to stop. They need to keep the pressure up. They can't do the kind of days of disruption. They don't have quite, it's the middle of August after all, and the Knesset, the parliament, is on holiday. But they are planning to continue the Saturday night protests, which gather in the main cities. And they've also put out a statement yesterday, an angry rejection of what the Prime Minister said to you, to Bloomberg yesterday about judge selection. They find that to be far away, a bridge too far, and that they believe it's going to lead to a kind of power grab, ultimately a form of dictatorship by the ruling party.
But Ethan, if you take away, right, the idea of the reasonableness criteria from the Supreme Court, then is there anything else really that you can take away and make it, less democratic? It feels like you're not protecting the minority if you take that criteria away.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's rather difficult to know. The use of reasonableness has been relatively limited, to be fair. There are other aspects, other ways in which the Supreme Court can protect minorities. There's other tools other than reasonableness. People are worried that any tool you take away from this court is bad news. You know, there is certainly reason to believe that the court will continue to be able to function, although, as I say, the protest movement and the opposition is adamant that these things are really crossing a line and removing vital checks and balances in the Israeli democratic system.
Ethan, thank you so much. Our Bloomberg Israel Bureau Chief Ethan Broner there with many, many insights after many decades of experience. Now, Ukraine has taken Russia's war into the Black Sea using drone strikes to cripple a Russian naval vessel and oil tanker. Wheat extending gains this morning. Joining us now is our Bloomberg senior reporter for international affairs. He's Mark Champion. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. So what exactly are the implications with the Black Sea escalation, both for Russia but also everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, it is significant. I mean, Russia kind of began this when President Putin pulled out of the grain deal that had allowed Ukrainian grain exports, stabilizing world markets, also very important to the Ukrainian economy. So when he did that and then began destroying port infrastructure, that he really began to expand the war into a new dimension. And this is the Ukrainians, literally the defense ministry, saying two can play at that. And so they have now begun to take the war to the extent they can using naval drones to Russian shipping in the Black Sea. And you already see, wheat futures up, even though no, wheat carrying cargo ships were hit. You've got a lot of oil going through as well. So it is an important moment, actually, in the war.
And what came out of the meeting with Saudi Arabia?
Also very interesting. I mean, here you have a meeting, more than 40 countries came, critically, including a lot of the global south and China and India. This was, the ambition was relatively low. They weren't trying to get a deal. They were simply trying to kind of catalyze, get people to sort of be around the table and start talking about something. Russia was not there. For the Ukrainians, this was progress. They got the Chinese around the table. They got people to sort of discuss with them. Russians not there again. So for them, it was a kind of progress, but it didn't move anywhere. There's no common statement. So it does underscore just how difficult it is going to be still to get the two sides to agree to anything where they come to terms, because they're both fighting it out on the ground right now.
Mark, thank you so much, as ever, for all of your reporting. Our Bloomberg senior reporter for international affairs, Mark Champion. Now, coming up, Nigeria's junta partially closes the country's airspace. Well, let's get the latest on this developing story. We'll do that next, and this is Bloomberg. The conversations that matter, the insights you need. This is The Pulse, and I'm Francine Lacqua here in London. Now, Niger's junta partially closed the country's airspace, warning of an attack by a foreign power as the deadline passed on Sunday to reinstate the ousted president. Bloomberg's Jennifer Zabazaja now joins us from our Johannesburg bureau. So, Jen, thank you for joining us. What's the latest here?
Yeah, Fran, I mean, what we were really waiting for was what was going to happen on yesterday, because that was the deadline set by ECOWAS for Niger, the military leaders there, to reinstate power. Of course, we didn't see that. That's why we are talking about this right now. And really what we're waiting for is what's going to happen next. As you mentioned, we did hear from the military leaders supposedly claiming that there was some sort of military intervention operation that was supposedly coming together within two Central African nations. We don't have any reporting on that at this point in time, but as a result of that, what we did see overnight is that these military leaders did close airspace, and that's already having an effect on a number of international airliners. We're hearing reports about some flights that are actually having to be diverted away from the country, coming from Johannesburg to London because of this reason. And so now what we're waiting to hear from is what the ECOWAS leaders are going to do. Their plan, and initially what we had heard from them was that they were planning a military intervention. Now it remains to be seen whether or not we're actually going to see that follow through.
So, Jen, what needs to happen in order for the tension to actually ease at this point?
The tension only heightened over the weekend, unfortunately. You were just, I think, looking at pictures of a rally that we did see in Niamey, which is Niger's capital, of thousands of would-be reported supporters of these coup leaders gathering together. We did see the coup leaders there. And we heard from a few of the coup leaders actually trying to encourage young people to be on the defense if military intervention were to, in fact, materialize. But on the ECOWAS front, we're waiting to hear what leaders have to say. From the ECOWAS chair, the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, we really heard that they wanted this to be resolved through diplomacy. They wanted any sort of reinstatement to democracy to be in a peaceful manner, not within military intervention. And so we need to see really how these leaders plan to move forward. With previous coups in this region, we saw similar actions taken, deadlines set by ECOWAS, but not the threat of force. So we're unclear whether or not they're actually going to follow through with that and what's going to happen now. But it seems like what many of the leaders want to see is a peaceful resolution and diplomacy to return power back to President Mohamed Bazoum.
Jen, thank you so much. Our very own Jennifer Zabazaja there in Johannesburg. Now, here's what else we're watching this week. On Tuesday, the ECB releases its consumer expectation survey. On Wednesday, then, we'll get China CPI and PPI. Later in the day, we'll be watching the Disney earnings. And then on Thursday, it's, of course, U.S. CPI. The prior month's report showed a rise of 3% from a year ago, which is the smallest increase in more than 2 years. And then at the end of the week, we also get UK GDP and U.S. PPI. Now, this is a picture across the board for European markets. A lot of the focus is in what's happening in the short-term German bonds. Now, they rose as the central bank also said it would stop paying interest on domestic government deposits. That means there's a dash for higher yielding yields. I'm also looking at wheat prices. So it's a good time to look at wheat prices rising after a drone attack on Russian oil tankers prompted a fresh wave of missile strikes by Moscow over the weekend. And then, of course, the big one that we're watching is the U.S. 2-year. But in general, it's Treasury yields. Actually, for the moment, they're advancing, reversing some of Friday's decline when the interest rate sensitive 2-year yield and the 10-year yields fell more than 10 basis points after U.S. payrolls come in below estimates. Remember, the concern is that there's a lot of issuance over the next 10 days, actually over the next 6 days. So watch out for Treasuries. The other story that we're extremely interested in is Siemens. Siemens Energy launching the strategic review of its wind power business as problems with its turbines are expected to cause a €4.5 billion net loss in one of the industrial Germany biggest debacle. So we'll continue watching the debacle, and this of course comes also in a worsening outlook compared with the previously roughly prediction of 1 billion. So that prediction of a loss became 4 times bigger, and you can see Siemens down 1%. Up next, Bloomberg Surveillance Early Edition with Kriti Gupta in New York, Danny Berger here in London, and this is Bloomberg.